Today I'll read you the chapter Tradition as Empowerment versus Tradition as Oppression from my book The Black and White of Argentine Tango, both sides of tango's greatest debates. The purpose of the book is to present both sides as honestly as possible without taking sides. You get the black, you get the white, and then you choose what shade of gray you want to use. Let's start. Tango carries a lot of rules. How to invite someone to dance, how to walk around the floor, how long to dance with the same partner, what music to play, how to dress, sometimes even where to sit. For some dancers, these rules are what make tango feel like tango. They are the structure that holds the dance together, the accumulated wisdom of generations who figured out what worked and passed it on. For others, the same rules feel like walls, inherited constraints from a different time that prevent tango from becoming what it could be for the people dancing it today. Both responses are honest. Understanding where each comes from requires understanding why the rules exist in the first place. Tradition as empowerment. Every tradition in tango was created to solve a problem. That is worth sitting with for a moment because it changes how the rules feel when you know their history. The cabeceo and mirada developed because direct verbal invitation was socially risky. Walking across a crowded room to ask someone to dance and being refused publicly was humiliating for both parties. The glance and nod system gave both people equal and private ability to say yes or no without anyone losing face. It protected the woman's ability to decline without confrontation. It protected the man's dignity without requiring him to absorb a public rejection. It was an elegant solution to a very human problem, and it worked so well that it has survived nearly a century. The tanda developed because one song is usually too short to build deeper connection, and an entire evening is too socially binding. 3 or 4 songs with the same orchestra became the social contract of the milonga, long enough to establish something genuine, short enough to preserve circulation. The cortina solved the awkwardness of separation. When the cortina plays, everyone in the room knows that the tanda is over, and returning to your seat is not a personal statement. It is simply what you do. Without the cortina, every ending requires individual negotiation, and negotiated endings carry the risk of feeling like small rejections. The ronda developed because hundreds of people sharing a crowded floor needed shared rules to avoid collisions. Counterclockwise flow, staying in lanes, no sudden overtaking, entering the floor only when space opens. All of these were borrowed from the same logic that governs any shared physical space. They are not aesthetic preferences. They are civic order applied to a dance floor. Small steps in crowded conditions, communication in close embrace, maintaining the embrace through most of the dance rather than breaking it for display, all of these emerge from the same practical reality of many people in limited space trying to connect rather than collide. Even the traditions that seem most purely social carry the same logic. Walking a partner back to her seat after a tanda was a courtesy that signaled the interaction was complete and prevented ambiguity about future invitations. Men practicing together before dancing with women emerged from the demographic reality of early Buenos Aires, where men vastly outnumbered women and had to earn their place on the social floor through years of preparation. Earning dances through reputation, the knowledge that respect and good floorcraft would bring more invitations than technical flashiness, rewarded exactly the qualities that made the milonga a better experience for everyone. The deepest insight about tradition is this: most of what has survived did so because it was kind. The cabeceo is kind. It protects everyone's dignity. The tanda is kind. It gives both people a clear beginning and a clear end. The ronda is kind. It makes space for everyone. When a tradition feels oppressive, it is worth asking whether the tradition has been misunderstood or whether it has been applied without the kindness that created it. A rule enforced for its own sake, without understanding or care for the people it was meant to protect, is no longer the tradition. It is the tradition's corpse. Tradition as oppression. Traditions were created by specific people in a specific place at a specific time to solve specific problems. That context matters. The Buenos Aires of the 1930s and 1940s, with its particular gender norms, its immigrant social codes, its crowded neighborhood clubs, its formal relationship to public intimacy, is not the world that most tango dancers inhabit today. When traditions travel far from the conditions that created them and far from the values that animated them, the question of whether they still serve their original purpose is entirely legitimate. Some traditions carry within them assumptions that belong to a different social world. The expectation that men lead and women follow, that men do the inviting and women do the accepting or declining, that the formal structure of the evening mirrors a particular kind of gender dynamic. These were not neutral design choices. They reflected the social reality of a specific time and place. As that reality has changed, asking whether the traditions that encoded it still serve the people dancing today is not disrespect for the past. It is honesty about the present. There's also the question of what happens when traditions are applied without understanding. A tradition that protects dignity applied by someone who does not care about dignity becomes a mechanism of exclusion. A tradition that creates community enforced by people who use it to police who belongs and who does not becomes a tool of power. The tradition is the same. The spirit behind it has been replaced by something else, and from the outside, from the perspective of someone who has just been excluded or corrected or made to feel unwelcome through the application of a rule whose original purpose was kindness, the experience is indistinguishable from oppression. People also come to tango for genuinely different reasons. Some come for the social codes and the structured beauty of a traditional milonga. Some come because they want to move their bodies to music they love. Some come because they are lonely and the embrace is the closest thing to human contact they have access to. Some come because they want to improve at something difficult. None of these reasons is more valid than another, and a tradition that serves one of them beautifully may actively prevent another from being met. The most generative question is not whether a tradition is right or wrong. It is whether the tradition is still serving the reason it was created. The ronda exists because of kindness toward other dancers. If following the ronda still produces that kindness, follow it. If a particular application of it produces cruelty or exclusion instead, something has gone wrong. Not with the principle, but with the application. Staying loyal to the reason behind a tradition, rather than to its specific form, is what allows tango to remain alive rather than becoming a museum of rules that nobody quite remembers the purpose of. I hope you enjoyed that chapter of the book, The Black and White of Argentine Tango, Both Sides of Tango's Greatest Debates. You can find the book on Amazon for worldwide delivery. Just type The Black and White of Argentine Tango and allow yourself to dive deep into Argentine Tango's greatest debates.